today's going to be a fun day. We're going to talk about tips, tricks, and strategies. We're going to cover a gamut of things. And I will tell you that as we go, if you have questions, please write your questions into the question area on your GoToMeeting panel because you won't remember what they are. And I'm going to welcome all questions. We're going to have time to really delve into some questions that you have, and I want to be able to customize this as much as possible to those that are here that are on the call. So I welcome your questions. And we will take time to get those answered as well. Colleen will be moderating that. So without further ado, let's just jump in and get going. So a little bit about me. I'm the president and founder of Genoo. I created the demand generation certification curriculum offered by the Online Marketing Institute. It's also called the Digital Marketing Certificate or Certification Program as well. It's a 7-course curriculum. And Genoo, we not only have online marketing tools that host a whole gamut of information and emails and tracking and things like that that help you, that is completely integrated with Lumens. We also work with businesses to supercharge their online marketing and build their marketing teams. So that's enough about me. Let's just jump in and talk about the subject at hand, about how CE can better market their business. So this is a shot across the bow. I want to wake you guys up because it is a new world of marketing that's out there. And I know that conceptually you guys know this, but I also know that given the continuing ed organizations that we work with and the conversations that we have with a lot of you folks, you're still doing things that used to work really, really well about 5 or more years ago. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that you need to be thinking about doing and shifting in your marketing approach. And I think a lot of you guys get scared because it's like, oh my God, that's so much work. How do we get it all done? So hopefully today we're gonna give you some good ideas around that. But the truth is the pressure is mounting for you guys. You've got to increase your enrollment. You've got to increase your revenue. You've got to increase your profit while your budgets are shrinking. Staff is stretched thin. I know that we asked you guys a bunch of questions when you registered, and we said one of them was, how many people do we have that focus on marketing? The minority of those answers actually pointed to the fact that you had 5 or more people in marketing. That was a small segment of you guys. Most of you have 0 to 1 people working on your marketing. So your staff is stretched really thin. You operate like a small business, and that's the heart of our customer base, so we understand that reality. And bureaucracy in many cases is holding y'all hostage. You know, you're in a school environment. Some of you are in a public school environment, and you're held hostage in your web efforts to what's okay to send out to a K through 6th grade audience. And what you've got is adult education, and you've got to be able to compete with all the myriad of things that are now available. And why is that? Well, the world, as I said at the very beginning, has shifted. And competitors are not just other educational institutions anymore. You've got consultants and experts in their field that now, given the internet, given the easy publishing, you've got people offering training programs, certification programs, all kinds of things that never could have done it before, but they can do it now because they've got the internet, and they can set up membership-based sites, they can set up online learning, they can set up communities, they can do all kinds of things, and you have people doing that today. Particularly, just if you look at my world, in the world of online marketing, you've got a lot of online marketing experts that are all out there offering different training programs. You've also got small businesses that are bringing expertise to the fore. Why? Because in the online marketing world, you've got people that have to distinguish themselves, and content is how they do that. Just like Genoo, we created the online marketing certification curriculum that's offered now through the Online Marketing Institute. Internet marketers, people are learning how to market their expertise online, how to sell classes, how to sell ebooks, how to provide that expertise to a whole audience of people that are interested in learning what they know. And then you've got niche players, people that just know specific subject matters really super well, and you've got and they're offering their expertise. Not to mention Coursera from Stanford and OpenCourseWare from MIT and a whole host of those sort of MOOCs that are out there offering classes. And just as part of my preparation for this, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take one of these classes, and I signed up. I'm taking a gamification class out at Coursera and some other things, and so I could see what that is that's getting offered out there. So competitors are smart. Online marketers, people that want to, end up making a business out of offering their expertise out to the world, they're motivated. They're motivated to start their own stream of income. They're motivated to get out there, and they dedicate time and effort to it. They're like wolves at the door. You don't pay attention to what you've got from your continuing ed and your organization in terms of just the well-being and the trust and everything else that you have to leverage. You're going to be, you're going to be in a tough spot. So I think that you can be smarter. So today, this is our agenda. There are going to be strategies we're going to go over that are going to cover the targeting and segmenting approach over a one-size-fits-all approach. We're going to talk about social media, specifically Facebook, and what's possible for you there. Email marketing and lead nurturing. Now I know that at the Learn event, for those of you who are there, the email marketing class, the email marketing event, or the topic that was presented there on email marketing had standing room only. It was great. The lead nurturing topic, it was spotty. And what I want you to know is these are tightly integrated together. And so we're going to talk about both. Supporting your contract training or customized training efforts that you sell out to businesses. We're going to talk about that, just touch on it. And we're going to talk about content and content development. Why are we going to do that? Because it's all about content today and how well you engage your audience. All right, so let's jump into targeting and segmenting, because this is the first key to engagement. So what you want to know is, who's your audience? Who are you targeting? So if you have a broad audience, if you offer hundreds of classes and you send out an email that says, we're open for registration, register now, and you send that out to everybody on your list, and you get a 15 to 20% or so open rate, and you're high-fiving because 15 to 20%, you can live with that. 25%, boy, you're a rock star. So you high-five. Now let's just bring that to reality. That means even at the top end of that, 2.5 out of 10 people cared about what you said. Now contrast that with more of a targeted approach. We're going to contrast that because it's very different. You can almost double that interest rate. So who is your audience? Do you want to go by demographics? You can certainly go by demographics, age group, gender, geo-targeting, so their location. And you guys have, sometimes there's schools that have multiple different counties or lots of different locations where you offer your programs. So how do you target in so people can sign up for what's close to them, et cetera. So that's all demographic targeting, right? Then you got psychographic targeting. How do they think? What's their psychology there? So the psychographics, the millennials from the Gen Xers, all of that. How do they approach life? All that kind of stuff. You've got recency, frequency, and monetary. So how recent was their engagement with you? How frequently do they engage with you? And how much money do they spend with you? So you can do all kinds of things around that. So you can look at that from clicks, from visits, and from purchases. So clicks, how recently have they clicked on anything that you've sent them? What's the frequency of how often they click or how often they visit? How recently have they visited? And then, of course, you can do all that for purchases, and then purchases can include the whole money spectrum of it as well. One of the things that I'm going to talk to you about is really understanding the persona or the different sorts of people who engage with you. And you pull all of the demographic, psychographic, and recency, frequency, monetary stuff. You can bring all of that to bear on your persona research and understanding your audience. But what you want to look at is you want to look at targeting for engagement. So when you target for engagement, ask yourself, well, what engages you? If you were a Gen Y or a millennial, and so that means you're in your 20s, right? Would you be interested in what other 20-year-olds are interested in? Or would you be interested in, biking or cooking or sewing? And it goes across age groups, right? So I would say, look at what engages you, and you're a particular audience, so you're not necessarily who you're talking to, but when you think about engagement, which is what's so important today, you have to think about what is it that engages people. It's not their age. It's topics. It's subject matter, okay? It's interests, It's not so much their age group or their demographics necessarily. So you want to understand your audience. So when you think about personas, you want to understand your audience, get inside their heads. What do I mean by that? Well, what questions do they have? What issues do they face? What concerns? What fears? And this is specifically related to what it is you want to talk to them about, if they're interested in it, right? So if you want to interest people in taking a grant writing program, right, that might be a 6-month grant writing course that costs $3,000, well, what questions do they have about grant writing that are issues that if they could solve those questions, they'd win more grants? What issues surround grant writing that plague everybody, that if they had some tips on how to deal with that your class is going to deal with, well, how might that change whether or not they might sign up for that class? What concerns do they have? The same thing, like when you look at marketing and you look at augmenting your marketing, what concerns do you have? Well, likely if you have 0 to 1 people working on marketing for your organization, you're going to be like, wow, well, I would love to do more than just a batch and blast send, but how would I ever find the time to do that? And then what would I say? On top of that, if content's the game, oh my God, just, let me put my head in the sand again, because how do I develop that content? So, that's a concern you have. A fear you have is how would we possibly get all that done that needs to get done? So you want to get at that. You want to get inside their head. On top of that, so that's on the side that's, issues, concerns, fears, but what are their aspirations? What would people love to master and have mastery in? Tap aspirations. What do they hope for? What's a day in their life look like? If you can understand what a day in their life looks like, you can start to look at, well, okay, so how do you appeal to that? How do you address the reality of their life and offer them something else? And what hopes? So aspirations and hopes tightly tied together. But what do they hope for? Get in their head. And you'll start to see how, if you're targeting people into a grant writing program or a photography class or a pottery class or a federal acquisition management program, you can start to see how might your messaging change. And it's very different messaging than time to register, we're open for a new term, here's all our classes, pick one, right? Now I'm not saying you won't send that email out, but you also want to follow up with really targeted things that you can go much more deep. So evaluate your current list and look at, can you create a targeted list for the segment and interest area that you're talking about? So can you even create that? So a lot of times with Constant Contact or MailChimp or Vertical Response or an email provider, you can't really easily create that. You have your list, but you can't easily search and create, who might be interested in what. It doesn't help you understand, well, how many visits have they had and what pages have they been at on their site? What are they really looking at with us, right? So what I'm talking about is something like this, where you can literally say, okay, I did a custom search on people that were interested in arts, and then I see all the other categories of classes that they've taken, but the biggest subcategory is crafts. So I now know that in the realm of arts, the majority of people in there, out of the 40, well, 36 of them have taken a craft class. So what might I do around crafts, and I can really segment into that. Now this is just looking at Genoo's View, which is our tools that we offer, but what you want to be able to do is really easily figure out, well, what is it that is going to give me ideas around how I can focus. So imagine if I could then say, well, if everybody who's taken an arts and crafts class, what subcategory of classes have they taken? Well, 18 have taken entrepreneurship training. Now, that doesn't tell you a lot, but it tells you, well, hey, wait a minute. With the gray matter between my ears, I might be able to just create scenarios. Scenarios like, I wonder if people do crafts, they do craft shows, and they're trying to do some extra business, like bring in some money or whatever. If they're doing the craft shows, they're selling their stuff. So maybe they want to learn more about entrepreneurship or business. I don't know. So that might be something that you try as a campaign. For everybody that's taken a craft class, start to also promote to them some business classes, some ways that they can turn things into a business. So, you know, that's, for example, that's what we're talking about when we're saying how well can you create these segments and how well can you get at that information in a way that really lets you see and get ideas around what you could target. So the other thing is, when you evaluate your current list, do you need to acquire new leads, or do you want to just market to those that you have? So you want to establish channels for your campaign effort. So for instance, if I know I need to acquire new leads, well, perhaps, now if I've got a Facebook page, I'm just going to bring Facebook into it quickly because we're going to talk about this, but if I've got a Facebook page, and many of you do, how can I use that page to really segment out and maybe even do targeted advertising to people that are in a specific, have a specific interest or in an area, because you can easily do targeting of Facebook users and get your ads in front of them and bring in new people. So you can geo-target and you can target by interest, and Facebook will tell you how many potential people will see your ad. So you can create specific efforts just for that. Again, we'll talk about that more later on. But you want to establish channels for your campaign effort. Now, here's the thing that you want to do is you want to figure out how can you really rock with social media. So a lot of times, and I'm going to say it's going to be from a more targeted approach than a more general approach. So you want, it's just like email. If people are out there in social media, what are you engaging them with? And if you're going across the board with everything, you're going to get lower engagement than if you can focus in. So I know that one of the ideas that you might think about for larger segments that you satisfy with your training, where you have a pretty solid participation base, but it's really, you might come up with a multiple Facebook page strategy, not just a single Facebook page, for instance. And the other thing is that, what are you using social media for? Are you just posting things out there, or are you posting things that drive interest and clicks back to your website or your blog? So one of the things that you really want to look at is using social media to generate traffic that comes back to your website or blog, that then signs up for your mailing list or explores, can give you their information in exchange for something short of giving you money to register into a class. The majority of you will not have a call to action that goes beyond sign up now, because that's your one favorite call to action, because what else are you out for? But the truth is you've got to learn to wine and dine people before you just go for the goal, before you say, well, ready to register? Well, are you ready to register now? Because if everything you send to people, or all the ways you engage, ask them to register now, and are you ready yet to register? Are you ready now to register? Pretty soon they tune your messages out because there's nothing else there. It's all just one big sales event. So if you drive people to your blog, you have calls to action that can drive them to a sign-up page on your website. Now, some of those things could include, you know, a feature on an instructor about a particular set of courses that then have a class list that instructor's teaching that points right to your Lumens class pages, that they can now look at those classes and choose which one to register into. So I'm not saying you don't have registration links. I'm saying you've got to have more than just that. have a way for them to sign up for your blog without registering into anything, or things like that. So think about more broadly about who you've got. And then you drive your calls to action right back to your website so that you've got landing pages they can complete a lead capture form and get maybe a little, a little infographic that talks to them about, a particular subject, or a short tips guide or something like that to a specific something that you have a class in. So let's talk a little bit about using Facebook for traffic. So this is an example from the Institute of Metaphysical Science that does trainings and classes. And so one of the things that we did was we did a Facebook post that goes directly over to a landing page that has a segment of a seminar that was being done live. And now this was just the video from it. But what we did was a paid post. And so what we ended up with was, this, watch a video excerpt, and that. And then we sponsored that out. So what we're doing is we're getting more people to see it that have a specific interest in what this institute's up to, and we have it very highly targeted in. Now here you're only showing that 4 people shared it, but we had 173 people like this. So, and I'll have you know that we started out with only about 36 likes on their overall Facebook page, and now they're way up over 100, and we're continuing to build that traffic with them. But then they come into the blog, and they've got calls to action that they could subscribe to their blog and fill out a little lead capture form there, or they can go look at this particular call to action, which is about a book and some other things that are available there. So that's just one example of driving traffic from Facebook to your blog or your website that then engages them. And if you have YouTube videos at all, pull them through on your pages. Don't just take people out to YouTube. Why? Because you can track this. You can't track once you hand them off to Facebook. You can't track that. So you see the calls to action that you've got as well. And that's all, when I bring them into my blog post, that's all measurable traffic. I can actually see conversion effectiveness. You can actually see, well, how much traffic has come to that page and how many people have followed through and clicked the links that we want them to click. So you want to think about how you're building that engagement funnel, so the funnel from your Facebook into your site, and then what you're going to ask them to do. So, and registration could be part of it, but it can't be all of it. So one thing that you could think about is using this sort of an approach to use Facebook for list building. So you've got the Facebook advertising, which you can target specific interests. You can select age, gender, marital status, level of education. You can, and if you do this, you want to think about bidding manually and paying per click rather than by 1,000 impressions. Facebook will put you into a 1,000 impression payment scheme as opposed to paying by click. Now you can play with both and see which one yields you better returns, but definitely want to play with that. And select the promoting post or website clicks as a type of campaign. They've also, since I did this presentation, they've introduced some new kinds of campaigns as well that might be great. So when you specify your ad, I'll just show you a couple things, but when you specify your ad, you pay, how much do you want to pay per day? So that's your max budget. And then if I sent this over 6 days, I would have $180 over the 6 days. And then I can say, run it continuously, and then I'll just run forever, in which case you have no budget, but you're just doing $30 a day forever. Or I can say, no, I only want to run it for a period of time. Now, I usually choose about 3 days because I want to run it and see what worked, and then I might want to adjust it. So what you don't want to do, and I think the danger of running a continuous campaign is that you'll forget, and it'll just run out there and be ineffective, but you'll keep paying for it. And then optimize for clicks. So manually bid for clicks. Now I can say 30 cents max bid per click. And suggested bid is 20 to 38 cents. And usually I go higher. So I go above the highest because you're going to pay competitively. You're not going to end up paying high unless people raise their bids. But that's also going to determine where your ad is placed on the page, what position you get. So let's just look at the results that you can get. So you can get page likes. So you can bolster your page likes. So as people resonate with your posts, they like or follow your page, then your posts land in their news feed. So now as you start to post, rather than them having to come out to your page, they're going to see your post right in their news feed. So targeting your posts becomes super important. Again, if you post all across the board on every single subject, but they liked you because of a specific kind of post, you want to be sensitive to the fact that, you know, they might hide your posts if you do a bunch of posts that are about stuff they don't care about. Again, I'm building, you know, more for the idea of possibly having multiple Facebook pages that go into specific target areas. We definitely want to explore whether that is. But how many of you do have more than one Facebook page? And at the User Summit, there were only, like, I think only 1 or 2 hands went up out of the whole room. So I'm going to suppose that that's probably a very good percentage. Since we didn't put this as a poll question for this webinar, I'm going to say that probably very few of you actually have done that. Now, the other thing that you get out of Facebook results is website visits and conversions. So we've had people that have gotten, have built their whole list and really augmented their list with people that visit their website, they like the page, they sign up for something that's being offered, and they get a conversion. So we've done that with tip-based videos. We've done that with just assessments they can download. We've done that with all kinds of different ways to engage, checklists, assessments, little infographics that are like quick start infographics, things to think about that they could pin up. You know, we've done all kinds of different things like that and seen results grow just based on that. So we're using Facebook just to generate traffic, and they're advertising specifically to targeted people for that as well. So that's something with Facebook. Let's move a little quickly now to email marketing, and let's say I'm going to be an advocate, and I'm a big advocate to stop one-size-fits-all approach as your only approach to email marketing. So here's a few facts for you to engage with. For every $1 spent in email marketing, people receive about a $44 average return on that investment. It used to be $57, so you know, but you got to look at that batch and blast approach that used to be unbelievably great is now starting to taper off, and so email marketers estimate that 30% of email revenue derives from targeting to specific segments. So you're getting, instead of that batch and blast approach that's starting to wane, the more you can target your email into interests and things like that, you're going to get better results. You're going to get more of your revenue is going to derive from those sorts of emails more easily than how hard you have to work otherwise. And Marketing Sherpa reports a 208% higher conversion rate for targeted emails over batch and blast emails. So that you want to understand that one-size-fits-all email marketing is no longer even close to enough. And if you look at all the things that you need to do, now you're going to sit there and your eyes are going to roll back in your head, and you're going to say, oh my God, but I don't have the time given all the pressures that we've got. So, but one-size-fits-all isn't enough for a number of reasons. It requires broad and shallow messaging. So when you've got only 20% of people or 2 out of 10 people interested in what you're saying, you can only talk in a broad and shallow way. If you were to go deeply into photography or grant writing as an email that you sent out to everybody, people would just opt out at astonishing rates. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you send it to everybody. Whereas if you can target into the people who are really interested in a subject, you can do really well. You likely will not get quantity of results to meet enrollment goals when you do broad one-size-fits-all marketing. Now, I'll give you an example from Minneapolis Public Schools that we worked with them on, and that was they had a class They did a one-size-fits-all send out their email, and they noticed that, and this was for a summer term, and they noticed that their Aqua Zumba class only had one person registered into it. So what were they to do? Well, we looked really, and that was going to have to, this was a Wednesday, and they were going to have to cancel that class on Monday. So what we did was we did a simple query that said, that looked at, well, how many people are there that have taken aerobics classes? How many people are that have taken swimming classes? We decided, since Aqua Zumba is sort of a swimming/aerobics sort of class, it doesn't really apply to the dancing so much because Zumba is dancing, but it's more of an aerobics sort of thing. So send an email out to those folks, and it was only a couple hundred emails that went out. But by Friday of that week, they had filled the class. They had one spot left in it. And here's the other thing. 2 of the people that signed up were brand new in their database. They were brand new learners, so they hadn't been there before. So somebody forwarded the email to them, because what we said was, get your friends involved. You know, we sent it to the people who already registered, the one person that was already registered, and get your friends involved. But we also said, you guys could do this with your friends. It's time to get in shape for summer. And we just appealed to how cool it would be to take a Aqua Zumba class, right? And then we sent it to people who have that history of enrollment. So you've got to appeal to your target audience more specifically, just like we did. So rather than, hey, it's time to register, go figure out what you want to take and register, we really targeted it in on specific people. So again, and I have more examples we could talk about that too. So you want to go broad, but then you want to personalize. So if you start with a broad initial email, so register now, which is what you send, the vast majority of you, with links that trigger targeted follow-ups. So imagine if people clicked into specific categories of classes, but then they received specific follow-up communications that could be automated that would talk more specifically about the classes that are being offered in that specific area. And then, because you can build targeted communications that are automatically triggered based on that lead interest or that activity or that click through that specific link. So think about if you could do that, you could pre-build all this stuff, and then you pull the trigger, then your marketing sort of is taking care of itself, and then you can just sit there and see what you need to tweak about it. So that's another approach that you can take, and we can talk more specifically about that. But let's talk briefly about nurturing sequences. So it's not like you're just howling into the wind. We have a heart in this one because it's kind of like you're taking much more care. You're personalizing. You're going deeper. And this allows you to automatically follow up as well based on people's interests. So now this is taken from a webinar that we did with Ron Weist at Pierpont Technical and Community College in West Virginia. But basically, if you look at just the email metrics that you get, we're going to show you what they clicked on, but you can go deeper. So here I can see that 12 people clicked on this link and 11 people clicked on this other link about oil and gas training. But now I can click in and look at exactly who did that as well. But I can go deeper and see what else did they do. So I can click through the numbers and see who is interested in each topic, going beyond typical email metrics. Genoo's email metrics help you identify the people specifically, and then what else did they do. And you can take these people and place them into specific lists or assign to a follow-up sequence. So instead of having to pre-think all this stuff, like what if they click here and what if they click there, you can do things based on what they do after. So in the case of Pierpont, for example, they sent out a very broad email, and then they noticed that the second most clicked link in the email was to sewing. Now, this was a professional development email. Nobody registered into sewing, but that link, because of our metrics, they could see 3 people registered into a $3,000 grant writing program after clicking through sewing. But what they also thought was, well, hey, we have an interest in kind of sewing and cooking and back to basics. Maybe we could do some emails and some sequences about that. So they went to an instructor and got the instructor to write up some stuff. And then they used that as emails with landing pages to these articles that then featured the instructor in the classes that the instructor was now teaching, and they filled all those classes. So that was just a specific campaign that they put together. They had more buy-in from the instructor because the instructor had written the articles. They were now much more engaged in the outcome. So you want to track and understand detailed student information. So what subcategories of classes have they participated in? What category of classes? What have they registered for? When was their last registration date, for instance? So how they've participated in your programs you want to understand. You want to be able to monitor all this and dig into this so that you can then start to really target and segment on an aggregate level. So it's not like you're going to go in here and look at across thousands of students about what they've done, but if you have this information, now you can aggregate it and you can look at, okay, so how does this maybe relate to that, and come up with neat ideas. So you can also think about triggering emails and communications out based on a course enrollment. So if your Lumen system, people come in and they register into a class, they automatically come across into Genoo as a cart purchase, into a group called cart purchase, meaning that they've registered into a class. They come through here. Now I can set up triggers that would trigger people directly into follow-ups based on specific things I may know about them. So imagine if they come across and now they enrolled into a course, and if they enrolled into vegetable gardening, now I can assign to a follow-up sequence based on that. So I can send them things to get them ready for the class they're going to take, any pre-information, get them excited, have them, depending on how far out they are from the class starting, have them share it with their friends and have some of their friends attend the course with them. So I can send a series of targeted emails to prepare, and then midway through, maybe I check on the course or gain insights near the end to promote registration into what's next for them, so that we're always in communication appropriately as they go through their class. So automate your targeted emails. So here's what we're talking about. So maybe they have a sequence of emails that talk to them about a series of different classes they could take, and you're going to keep sending them that series of emails until they enroll in a course. As soon as they have a course enrollment event, you're going to stop sending them that sequence A, and you're going to start sending them their enrolled sequence for the course that they just signed up for, which could include them promoting it to their friends and having friends join the course as well or sign up for the course. But you want to make sure that when they sign up for this, that you suspend what they were getting in the first sequence that was talking to them about what all they could register into, and starts treating them appropriately. So those are the kinds of things that you can talk about with email marketing tools that you can automate. So you don't have to do all of this manually. You set it up and it can go ongoingly. And then you reset it as you approach your different terms and what you're going to feature. You don't have to do it across all your classes. Just do it across a portion of classes and start to see what you're able to accomplish. So let's talk about contract training or customized training really briefly. So you want to build the case. You want to highlight the benefits. So similar to what we've talked about, the truth is that mostly you have salespeople or on contract training working with Excel spreadsheets. Every now and then you're going to have people using maybe a Salesforce or a CRM, but you have no way to really market your contract training that really builds the case with the organizations, over time, that keeps your salespeople in front of them with new ideas about ways they can think about why contract training or customized training makes sense for their organization. How do they build ROI? How do they justify it in their organizations? Imagine if you could trickle this out. That's evergreen content that you can trickle out to all new leads over time and continue to build certain things up. So for example, just recently, Gallup came out with a 2013 study of the workplace, right? So it was done all last year. They published this, and it talks about how unengaged employees are, and that in the service side industry, the frontline workers, they're getting less and less and less engagement. Well, if you could take that kind of information and build arguments for why training their managers would make sense, and having managers that really like people and can coach people and do that can instantly turn around the engagement levels with your frontline employees. And those frontline employees could serve by getting trained in maybe some customer service skills. I don't know. But those kinds of things and those kinds of studies can be used in your content to build the case for contract training. Well, then as you know who's mostly engaging with your contract training, guess what your salespeople get to do? They get to focus in on those folks and find out, hey, you guys in the market for some contract training, customized training, we could do this. But they're also going to be warm calls because those emails that you're sending out from their salespeople. So if they reply, the salespeople get the replies. If the salespeople call, they recognize the name. Why? Because they've been seeing these emails that come out from those salespeople. So another opportunity that you have to really get in front of them and build the case without ever really having to have that personalized conversation, which can sometimes be really hard to get. But I think you've seen through all of this that content is the key. So you've got to sort of start to get a lot more creative and build the muscle for developing content and calls to action that go beyond register now, register now, register now. You're going to have to start thinking through what can you give away to get people interested, and how can you do that in ways that will say, yeah, and I actually do want to take that class. So there may be some of that, particularly in your professional development training. You've got to be able to give people assessments or checklists or things like that, and your instructors can provide you with the information. If they don't know how to build the information, well, you could just get on a conversation with them, record the conversation, pick their brain, get that transcribed, and now you can pull that together into the materials that you could offer. This doesn't take that much effort when you have things that you can automate on the back end that help you actually get your messages out. So let's talk content a little bit. 84% of ineffective marketers have no content strategy. They just pull it out of their heads and create content. Oh, what could be hot now? We have a newsletter to get out. Oh, let's just send them this. And that's a problem. What are the biggest challenges cited with content? Lack of time is what's cited. So here's what gets scary. What's the next biggest challenge that people cite? Producing enough content. So here's the problem. When you know you have to produce a lot of content, you have no content strategy, and you have no time to do it, you're going to start tossing stuff out there. And if you think we have, 50 million channels and nothing on now, it's going to get worse. Because if you don't start really looking at how you can engage, people are going to just start tuning you out because there's so much that's going to be coming at people around content. So, and 97% of businesses do not have a content development process in place or a way to produce the content that's going to drive their marketing efforts. So you want to really deal with this. You want to start to take this to heart. This is what we work with folks on and think about ideas around. And there's ways you can get started, and there's things you can do, and you can build on those things. Because a lot of what you do, like I said, it's evergreen content. Let's talk a little bit about educating versus selling. So there is always low-hanging fruit. There's people that you ask them to register, and they do it, right? But you want to ask yourself, are you engaging those who don't? Do you have a strategy for engaging the ones who don't register when you send out your call to action that says register now? So do you have calls to action that are not just register for a class or sign up for our newsletter? Those are your lazy calls to action. What else? Well, what if you had a photography class and your call to action was something much more engaging for people interested in photography? What if you had a federal acquisitions management program and your call to action was join us for a lunch and learn event at this local great restaurant in town to hear a presentation from the person who's going to be teaching the 6-month program and get your questions answered. And it's going to talk about the current landscape of the federal government and help you understand how you can close more deals. And you target and invite only the people that are actually people who would be right for that class. So you don't offer it out to everybody. Now, this is exactly what Pierpont did. They couldn't do that list. They couldn't figure out who to invite when all they had was Constant Contact. They could target it when they had Genoo, and they could invite just those people. And they came. They had 25 people attend the Lunch and Learn. They spent $600 buying them lunch. They had 6 people or 5 people register. No, they had 6. No, they had 12 people register. 25 people attend. They had 12 people register into the 6-month program, which is a $1,200 program. So if you do the math, 12 times 1,200, and then you divide that into the 600 they paid for lunch, you'll come out with a 2,500% return for that campaign. That's pretty darn cool. And then they had more people register than that. But that's what we're talking about. Do you have calls to action that will engage people? And then what are your metrics for success? So how do you know whether or not your content, your marketing is working, your emails are working? How do you know, besides just that they registered? So it could be a longer process that you're engaged in, and you can build it up and you can gain interest. You can build scarcity. There's a lot of things that you can do in your marketing that can help you. So the thing that you want to know is where is content used in your marketing process? Well, it's used to help get you found. It's used to help you engage. It's used to convert people. They come out, they look at a description of the class and when it's offered and they say, okay, I want to take this class. That's all content. It's used to relate to people and build relationships and have them start to go, yeah, I want to take a class from these guys. And it's used to help you sell, particularly your contract training. So there are 4 conversations that you'll have in your content, and you address these 4 conversations. So you've got benefits, questions, you've got emotions, and you've got stay in touch conversations. And they are shaped by where a lead is in their buying process because needs and focus shift as leads get closer to becoming a customer. So you want to talk about what people are going to get out of it. You want to answer the questions that they have. You want to address emotions. And you want to have stay in touch conversations, that are just like, keeping in touch with people. So you want to go for their heart. Number 1, that's the emotions. And then number 2, you want to address their head or the logic, right? So calls to action are essential. What is it you want people to do? You need to guide them. Most of your web pages don't. They just provide them with all this information and you think they'll figure it out. So they never click on exactly what you want them to click on. They click on whatever they're kind of off to explore. So if they don't, so you want to ask yourself, what is it you want them to do? And I know your answer will be register. Now if they don't register, then what would you like them to do? And have a secondary call to action that offers them something so that you can know that they're interested in that or they've taken that next action. What would engage them? So if they're right there looking at this blog post, reading this blog that you've done, what would be a great call to action to have them engage beyond register now? And have a purpose for your content and outreach that includes more than just course enrollment. Now I've said this a lot of times in this presentation. Here's some examples. So you have a call to action on a web page. Now this is taken from business, not from an education example, but you have a call to action on a website. McKinsey study on IT projects reveals new facts. Learn why IT projects never complete on time. More, right? Which then takes them to a blog article that says IT projects never completed on time, and it talks about that whole McKinsey study and what's going on. Well, make sure your success, or do you think your IT organization is focused on strategic objectives? Make sure your success depends on it. Check out our strategic IT checklist. So right there, you've got a call to action, and it's for a download of a checklist. So you want to understand that you've got a flow and a process in what you're asking people for. And here's how content helps with social. You want to drive people to engage in your blog article and have a good call to action to help drive lead generation efforts. So again, if I pull up the blog article that we had, that we had driven through from social media, right? now you've got subscribe to our blog, or you've got check out our strategic IT checklist. This could be register for, you know, these classes. Maybe it's a whole list of classes that have to do with what this blog post has to do with, and you can build that class list. With Genoo, we have a class list widget that pulls in real time only the open classes that that are pulled right from your Lumens in real time, so you never have to even go in and edit that. Once you put it in there, it'll only show what people can register into, for instance. So then this then comes up being leads, and you can measure this. You can measure how many people have clicked, how many people, and they fill out their lead capture form. You are measuring this stuff. So here's some more examples. You've got featured content in your website, and there's your class list widget that you've put in. So you're featuring a instructor. You've got your class list just for that instructor, and it only shows the currently open classes. That pulls automatically. Goes directly over to your Lumens page, and people can register, right? So you want to use content to engage and learn. So you've got a blog post. If they like this, they might also want to download the 10-step guide to a healthier life, right? That brings them into a landing page where you capture their information. Now they're not signing up for the course yet, but they're going to go get the guide. Now you can follow up with specific targeted emails and offers. So again, content is essential. It drives engagement. It gives you purpose on social media. So you might say, well, what's the issue, right? Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. You've got to market smarter. If you keep doing it the way you're doing it now, you won't be able to, and it'll drive you crazy. And I don't want to minimize it. It is work, but it doesn't need to drive you crazy. Integrated tools make a huge difference. So now I'm going to do a little bit of plug for Genoo, but the truth is integrated tools do make a difference. So Genoo is all-in-one marketing system. It's integrated real-time with Lumens. It enables you to do all the stuff we just talked about. Target and segment your list and your audience. Send emails, campaigns, and follow-up sequences automatically. See metrics and measurement that goes beyond just what they clicked on, which is all you get with MailChimp and Constant Contact and email programs. Now, those of you sending from Outlook, and there are a few of you that are sending from Outlook, stop it. You can't see if anybody's opening your emails. You do a big blind copy, send them out. Oh, my goodness. And then you've got to deal with all the opt-outs, and you can't even follow canned spam when you do it that way, because they have to do a reply saying, unsubscribe me, which is not canned spam compliant. So you're breaking the law when you do it. And you have, with us, you have all these metrics. We handle your opt-outs and bounces automatically. You have your open class list widgets and more. Plus, we worked with Lumens and Augusoft to say, what do people really need? So you get built in with the whole package is marketing consulting for continuing ed organizations for you. And it's not that you're grouped with others, it's that we set up marketing consulting for you specifically, and it comes right with the package you sign up for to use Genoo. Because process and strategy really do matter. They make a difference. So what I would love for you to engage with are what are the actions you can take when you're done with this webinar. So from this webinar, what are 3 things you can do tomorrow to improve the way you market? So take a minute and just write those down and think those through. And you're welcome to even state those in your comments. We're going to now open up for questions. And I just want to really thank you for your listening, and thank you very much. And now, if you want to find out more about Genoo, you can go to genoo.com/lumens. You can also email me with any questions you have, or also at genoo.com/lumens. You can sign up. You can click a button to sign up for a demo and pick the time that works for you and everything. So you can take care of that online if you'd like. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for questions. So back to you, Colleen, for whatever questions have come up while we've been talking.
Okay, great. What a bunch of information. That was wonderful. There was a couple questions. One question was about spam. How do you avoid your email going into spam? Are there keywords?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In fact, we just wrote a blog post about this. So if you go out to genoo.com and to /blog, you'll see an article out there about it. But basically, there's keywords. If you get stopped, if your email bounces because of spam content, it's because you used a word or series of words that the email spam engines have been programmed to weed out. So what we did is we kind of have a call to action that you can download actually that talks about the spam words to avoid, but you want to avoid free. You want to avoid, there's all kinds of stuff that if you want to avoid those, and you can also search for it. If you go to our blog post, read that, and then download the list of spam words, we give you resources, other links you can go to that have longer lists and probably keep them updated as well. So that's what I would say about that. But you want to, and then, so you want to just kind of know those things.
Great. That's great. Let's see. There was quite a few. A couple other questions. Let me see. If we use, one of them I thought was interesting was if we use Outlook as an email marketing tool, when you have a distribution list, when it's sent out, is there a maximum amount that you can put on that, or would you just recommend not using Outlook, period?
I would recommend not using Outlook, period. It's just not smart to do it. You can't do canned spam compliant stuff. You can't see who's opened your email. I will never forget one of the first customers we got when we started Genoo. She sent out her first email to 100 people, and she called me up and she said, Kim, there's something desperately wrong. And I said, what? And she said, well, I only had 10 people read my email. That cannot be right. And I said, well, tell me about your list. And she said, well, it's a brand new list. I've never sent to it before. And I said, okay. I said, well, if it's a cold list, 10%, actually not bad for a first send. And she said, really? And I said, yeah, well, what email service provider did you use before? And she said, well, we just sent them out of Outlook. And I said, oh, well, you don't know who was reading them. She goes, I just assumed everybody opened them. And I was like, wow, okay. So you don't know. You don't have any metrics. You can't improve, and you don't even know if everybody's just discarding what you're sending. And yes, there is a limit in the blind copy or the BCC of what you can send, and you certainly don't want to expose everybody's email on your list into the to column. That will get you blackballed really quickly. So yeah, there's all kinds of limits, and you have no idea how it's going. It's like shooting with a blindfold on and hoping that you hit the target.